Good morning, and welcome to our webinar presented by Alpha Omega Translations. My name is Cheryl Squadrito, and I will be your presenter today. Before we start, I would like to share some information. On the side of your screen, there is a red arrow or a control panel, and you just click there to open it. You can open the control panel if you need to change your audio mode or if you have a question during the seminar. Otherwise, it's good to have the control panel minimized so you could see my screen. Everyone will be muted except for me, which really cuts down on the amount of background noise. We also welcome questions during this seminar. There will be a time periodically during the webinar during which you can ask questions, and there is a chat box in your control panel that is outlined in blue. So please feel free to put your questions in that box. At the end of the seminar, I will be answering those questions, and then we will be also sending out the presentation slides and handouts for your reference. For the best audio and video quality, please remove any programs you may have running on your computer, and as well as any handheld devices, smartphones, or anything that can interfere with our audio quality. So thank you very much. Today's webinar, presented by Alpha Omega Translations, will provide you with an overview of the first stepping stones of globalization, translation, and localization. The idea of taking a business that has been very successful domestically and trying to duplicate that success internationally can be quite daunting. You know about Mars, you know you want to go there, but you're not sure how to get there. Many questions may arise to the surface for business owners, such as, why should I take such a risk when I'm doing so well here in my own country? Or how do I even begin to globalize my business? These questions and many more are completely understandable and legitimate. There is really no need to be fearful for the risks involved, as most bad decisions are prevented by simply staying informed and researching the best way to introduce your business to the countries you want to expand in. Once you begin to learn about what it takes to go global, you will see that nowadays it is easier now than ever before, thanks to restrictions that are no longer in place in some countries regarding global trade. First of all, my advice is get to know your target market. Get to know all the cultural traditions and customs your prospective customers practice before making any marketing decisions. Think about what it really means to globalize. Does it mean, simply taking your own marketing strategy that you have used in your business and simply dropping it into a different market? Even in instances where international markets are being targeted in English-speaking countries, sometimes it just doesn't work. Slogans, logos, and imagery that often work perfectly in the United States may fall flat or even be seen as weird or offensive, even in countries like England, Australia, and Canada. That should give you a better idea of just how much globalization has to do with language and how much is just knowing the culture of the target market. Yes, language and translation will play a huge role in your marketing strategy if the country you are trying to drum up business in doesn't speak English. However, with a good understanding of the culture, and particularly the consumer culture, your efforts won't be wasted. So when you're ready to decide to market in another country where the majority of people do not speak English as their first language, you have to do a little bit of extra homework. You will want to become familiar with the languages and cultures there, but also with the legal system and any business regulations. Even the political landscape will play a role in how certain marketing campaigns will be received or not in a foreign market. Obviously, having a good idea of what the economic status is like in said market makes a huge difference, as well as knowing how most consumers think. A good example of a company that didn't do its research before branching out overseas is Walmart, which tried to find success in Japan. However, one of Walmart's slogans, "Everyday low prices," was more off-putting for the Japanese customers who come from a culture that believes cheap things are just not good quality. To make sure you don't end up botching your whole campaign due to the lack of adequate research, just remember, get to know the cultural traditions and customs that your prospective customers practice before making any marketing decisions. It may be a bit wordy, but it all really boils down to know your customer, know your market. If you keep that as your main credo, you should be able to catch any problems before they become problems. So once you've embarked on your globalization journey, there are a few things that you should do right away. These include getting in contact with the translation agency that will serve as your linguistic and cultural guide. A good translation agency will know exactly what to do in terms of content, formatting, and a style to ensure your marketing campaign is a hit. So start by translating your website and other content into the language of your target market. But you have to remember, 73% of people prefer to buy from a website that is in their native language and from shopping from a cart that has not been translated by Google Translate with distorted text and formatting. Remember to keep that in mind. Now's a good time to ask questions in the chat box if you'd like to. So let's talk about localization. Localization refers to the process of taking a product and doing whatever is necessary to make it relevant to a different audience, usually a foreign one. Generally speaking, the original message doesn't change. It just gets translated and adapted to suit a target culture. A good synonym for localization is cultural adaptation, which implies that the source material is still very much taken into account. Nowadays, if you're a business owner, both big and small, in order to reach a broader market, you should really consider prioritizing in localization. Website localization is many times confused with translation, but it actually involves much more than that. Website localization includes combining efforts of different specialists to achieve more results than just having a website in a different language. One key aspect to take into account is the target audience. Even though many people can read in more than one language, most people tend to browse the web in their mother tongue rather than a secondary one, and they feel more comfortable if the content on the website is written in their own language. Many countries share the same language, but not the same cultural content, so defining the target audience is essential to create the desired impact on the reader, and in some cases avoids offending them. Some words have different meanings in different countries that speak the same language, so linguists have to design a strategy to overcome this, such as using a neutral version of the text or by creating different versions for each country or region. This aspect is also incredibly important to search engine optimization professionals, as content will affect the results shown by the web search engines for a different version of the site. So if different words are used for the same results in 2 or more countries, many users cannot get the results expected. You will need your translators and SEO professionals involved in the website localization to translate and localize as well keywords, meta descriptions, video subtitles, and voiceovers. Your approach must be comprehensive. There are things that literally get lost in translation when localizing an online business. They may be small, but in these details, if you can get them right, can make a huge difference in the international customer satisfaction. Here are 4 small things to take into account when localizing your site. 1, what languages are spoken there? 2, how do they like to pay? 3, does the language follow a different reading format? And 4, what currency is used? So again, we'll continue on why localize. Let's take the United States and Poland. The United States style of business is more relaxed and outgoing than Poland, where things seem to be very formal. This is why some Polish companies find it difficult to enter the US market because their business style, language, and approach might be considered too stiff or over formal. And to Polish people, the US style of business might come off as too loose or even unprofessional at times. Also, if you investigate the Japanese culture, you will find that the Japanese are very strict about following business protocol. So if a spontaneous Italian wants to do business with a rule-following Japanese citizen, they would both need to understand the nuances of and the differences between their cultures. An existing characteristic of the Japanese culture is that sarcasm doesn't exist. So if content is sarcastic in nature, Japanese clients simply won't understand it. So the translation of a website is just not a matter of accurately translating your words. To be understood and accepted in your target countries, you must pay careful attention to the cultural values and norms. The smallest misstep in your copy can deter your audience. Other important elements to consider for a successful website translation are included but not limited to localizing the layout and site navigation. Translation often affects layout and may require more or less room depending on the country. Right to left, top to bottom, which pages should be available are important considerations when localizing the website. 2, adapting pictures to the audience. Cultural messages, both subtle and not so subtle, can be contained within pictures. A company or product can unknowingly portray negative connotations that may irritate or even offend prospective customers and viewers. Images need to be carefully reviewed and perhaps adjusted to positively reflect upon your company's messaging. Do the images in English, when the English website, convey any negative or humorous connotations in the other culture? 3, localizing symbols. Symbols, like pictures, can cause problems with localization. Western symbols can mean different things to an international audience. Fingers, houses, and animals often need to be modified when marketing abroad. Obvious items like time and date display, measurement units, currency, numbering systems, and fonts are identified and formatted correctly as part of the localization process. Displaying dates and time in the preferred local formats is also recommended as it avoids confusion and allows for improved user experience. Here's an obvious example, is the difference between the UK and the United States date formats. If your website promises to deliver goods on 11/12/13, then the UK users would expect this to be the 11th of December 2013, while American users would think that it is the 12th of November 2013. Similarly, in Japan, the date is written with the year first, then the month, then the day. So presenting the date as we do to a Japanese user would make them think their goods were being delivered in 2011 instead of 2019. So a question you want to ask, do the symbols in the English website convey any negative or humorous connotations to the other cultures? Do items like time and date display, measurement units, currency, numbering system, and fonts need to be formatted differently and specifically as part of the localization process? So number 4, adapting colors to cultures. Colors, although not as critical, can also have cultural meaning that must be analyzed in website localization. Proper color choices can improve user acceptance and avoid hidden meanings. For example, in Korea, pink represents trust, and in China, yellow represents nourishing, and in India, red represents purity. Color choice may not always have disastrous consequences, but avoiding subtle unwanted meanings is always advisable. Do any of the colors in the English website convey any negative or humorous connotations in the ones on the English website, the other culture? If so, what colors do you suggest as a replacement? Okay, number 5, brand names. If you have a policy and it works in a foreign language, then leave it. If it's an obscure application, maybe change it. Does this make it confusing to the user? Be consistent. Writing down your policy and reasons saves you having to explain things 100 times, and policies can be changed. Do the brand names in the English website convey any negative or humorous connotations in the target culture? Remember, 73% of the world does not use English to communicate. If you aren't speaking and writing in their languages, what opportunities are you missing? So localization of websites need to follow some e-commerce trends. So keep an eye on these countries to look out for in 2010. On the list is Argentina, India, Russia, Brazil, and China. And this graphic will be available as one of your handouts for this webinar. So here are the languages with the most purchasing power for 2020. English is 33%. But then here are the other breakdowns across the world. Once again, this will be in your handouts. And then here are some trends. Well, I'll just go over the first one. English will not be important in 2020 as it is now, but it will still be the top language. So you can look for these flyers in your handouts. So brand management, social media, and hyper-personalization and artificial intelligence are on the top of a lot of marketing people's minds. A strong brand is the key to sparking interest in a new locale and in driving customer loyalty. How do you adopt a brand for a foreign market without destroying its essence? It's a great question. There are lots of good examples of companies who've struggled with that and others who have never really succeeded. McDonald's is a great example. If you think about their overall brand image, its colors, the silly clown, and so on, you also think of the ambience. Often in a foreign context, McDonald's is even a little bit more upscale than in the US, but the ambience is very similar. In a lot of emerging markets, McDonald's is a really common place for a first date. McDonald's is also known worldwide for convenience and for quality food at reasonable prices. So McDonald's keeps those colors and that clown, and they also offer core products like Coca-Cola and French fries. McDonald's has also established what they're going to keep to support their core brand essence, but what they adapt a lot of their product offerings to keep with the local market. Well, here's one example of localization gone bad. Fiat had a car released a few years ago that was called Nova. The car was supposed to be sold in South America. In Spanish, Nova means it does not work. So what do you think happened to their sales? It was a very expensive failure for Fiat. But there are some, like McDonald's, there are some more examples of successful localization. In the Philippines, they have a very ketchup-y kind of spaghetti, and McDonald's offers that there. In Taiwan, they offer rice and corn soup, and the things are very localized. In Germany, McDonald's offers beer, and in France, they offer wine. So McDonald's adapt to the local aesthetics, local tastes, but they don't lose track of their core brand essence. There was a survey of children in Japan. They thought that McDonald's was a local company. McDonald's adopted enough to be part of the local consumption, but they're keeping their same brand globally. What do you do if you mess up that core brand essence when you go global? It's not easy, but a lot of businesses get it wrong when they try to go global. Alpha and Omega translations offer end-to-end solutions that will cover all aspects of website translations in order to avoid communication and translation breakdown. We conduct a thorough analysis of the website's content, code, media assets, and establish an implementation plan, translates templates and web pages, and test extensively to verify the proper translation of all elements. When your translated website is deployed, your target audience will be pleased with the results, trust your agency, and be more receptive to your message. The team at Alpha Omega Translations has expertise in all the popular languages, including but not limited to HTML, HTML5, CSS, Microsoft.NET, Java, Adobe, Flash, Photoshop, Illustrator, After Effects, as well as all open source content management systems, including but not limited to WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. So if you want more information about globalization, here's a link to download our manual, How to Globalize Successfully, a Guide for Businesses. So part of the handouts, you'll be able to click on this link live and be able to download our ebook. So I would like to thank you on behalf of Dimitra Hengen, the company's owner, Alpha Omega's owner. We'd like to thank you for being there. And I see that we have some questions that need to be answered that came in. There's just a few, but let's see how many we can fit in. Here's an easy one. How much does translation cost? Well, that's a really great question. We get that every day, but it depends on the content, the subject matter, language combinations, and turnaround time. So that was a really great question, and we answer that every day. Here's another question in here. How do we know that the translation is accurate? Well, that's a good question as well. To ensure that the technical accuracy of the translations, Alpha Omega Translations team conducts thorough research and establishes and maintains close coordination with bilingual subject matter experts. We obtain authoritative references in both languages and conduct extensive research of the latest techniques and developments to ensure the use of current technology and format. Of course, we use human translators specialized in the subject matter of your material that needs to be translated. So this question is another one that we've been getting a lot, is can the human translator be replaced with artificial intelligence? So let's say you have a product description, an instruction, or a website that needs to translate into a few different languages. Hiring a translation agency to do it will cost time and money, but there's an easy shortcut that we're all too familiar with, Google Translate. A couple of clicks and voila, international versions of your documents are now available. If you don't like Google, and who doesn't like Google, there's also Microsoft, Yandex, and DeepL Translator. What connects them? They're all free and automated, and they praise themselves for using the latest technologies, the largest databases, and the most sophisticated algorithms. However, a lot of things could go wrong. And what could go wrong? Well, the internet has plenty of examples. I found something recently on Babbel about when simple phrases are translated and fail. So here was one. One example was fall protection becomes, part of my accent, otoño protection in Spanish, which means autumn protection. So according to this translation done by a computer, apparently we need a lot of protection from foliage. So also we found another one that was kind of funny from the Olympics in Korea, the last Olympics. There was a machine trying to count, and they had some problems. A chef for the Norwegian Olympics team was trying to order 1,500 eggs for his athletes. Who knows what Google Translator was thinking when it translated his message into Korean as 15,000 eggs. So even though he only wanted 1,500, they ordered him 15,000 eggs. That's quite an omelet. So there's a straightforward reason why for these things failing. The machine doesn't try to understand the context, it just decodes. Every good translator will tell you that to make a good translation, they will need to understand what is being written. They'll first read the text, and then they'll move on to translating. Otherwise, the translation, even if it is grammatically correct, will end up being inappropriate in tone, potentially offensive, or at the very least will sound unnatural. Google and other internet companies are well aware of the shortcomings of their translation services, and they are continually improving them. Recently focused on a machine deep learning. Have you guys heard of machine deep learning? Well, what does that actually mean? The best way to put it in simple terms is the computer's understanding of the language improves with the amount of language and information it processes, and mistakes gradually become less. So yes, automatic translations are getting better, but you can decide if they're good enough for you, especially if you're only saying an approximate idea of what the document is saying. However, besides still being far from perfect, or even as imperfect as human translators, machine deep learning has another very serious caveat. Companies like Google and Microsoft note in their terms of use say that they have the right to use every entry to improve future searches. They also retain the right to use the information you provide in very different ways. That means entering highly sensitive legal, medical, or human resources information might violate a non-disclosure agreement and result in serious fines. Even if this worst case scenario doesn't come to pass, you will never be able to know exactly where the information you entered is available or to whom it may have been sold. Are you ready to take that risk? I know I'm not. At the end of the day, deep learning, no matter how well it is designed, is probably not on your side. So that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Join us next week for our next webinar. And thank you, and we hope you learned something. Have a great day.